One of the worst feelings in life is when you feel like things are going great and it seems like everything coming your way is positive, but then almost out of nowhere, everything that was going good in your life starts to get ripped away. Well, that's what's happening to Arsenal this season, or at least it feels that way at least. Arsenal right now are seemingly existing in the void. They find themselves good enough to beat most teams in the league and go into matches confident that they'll win, but also bad enough to lose matches they should be winning or just continuously coming up short. But I guess considering they finished twice 2 seasons in a row now, it does make some sense. So with that being said, this isn't a video where I'm necessarily just gonna hate on Arsenal the entire time. In fact, almost a year ago I made a video talking about how Arsenal's banter era was seemingly over and how Arteta had changed so many things which was allowing them to start challenging for titles more seriously. But fast forward a year, now we have Arsenal and Arteta back under scrutiny because they've more or less failed to live up to the expectations that the footballing community put on them. After bottling the league twice, we assumed that they would finally take this season to mount a title charge and finally come out on top. And I'm not saying they don't currently have a chance to still win the Premier League. I mean, heck, they're still sitting in 2nd place and they're even in 3rd place in the Champions League at the moment. But they have fumbled the opportunity of City being terrible this year tremendously. From watching them, it really feels like they've regressed from the standards that were set early on by Arteta. And when you consider how Arsenal fans have been moving since the 22-23 season, you think they have already achieved something great. All this begs the question, what the heck is going on at Arsenal Football Club? And real quick boys, if you're new to the channel, enjoying the content, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. We are dropping weekly football videos, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload. And if you're not new to the channel boys, welcome back. Glad to have you around for another video. But with that being said boys, let's get into the regression that Arsenal is going through at the moment. For explaining the somewhat of a drop off at Arsenal, I think it's important when we talk about the elephant in the room, Mikel Arteta. Arteta, who's been at the club for just about 5 years, has done wonders with the team. As I mentioned in my older video, his vision for Arsenal has dragged them out of their banter era and has seen them a top side for years now. However, it's the same vision that's currently forcing this Arsenal team to drown in their sorrows. You don't even have to dive into the numbers or the statistics to see that Arteta's style of play has regressed significantly over these last handful of years. Just watch Arsenal and you can see how much they rely on pragmatism instead of being the type of team that beats their opponent down. There's been multiple times this season where Arsenal really lacked any X factor or killer mentality that they've had in the past, and this is Arteta's vision. But of course, it's not all on the eye test. There is data that backs up the fact that Arsenal have regressed over these last handful of years, especially from an attacking standpoint. Since Arteta first mounted his title charge in the 22-23 season, Arsenal have continuously gotten worse in the attack. After match day 16 over the last 3 seasons, you can see how drastically the output has dropped off. It's already cause for concern enough to go from a 40 goal output to 33, but the fact that it has dropped from there is even worse. And considering how all of the metrics across the board on a decline, it's not a very positive thing to look at. And if we take a look specifically at the decline from the 22-23 to the 23-24 season, we see how Arsenal strikers, midfielders, and wingers all regress in most significant areas when going forward. It's all fun and games when your side becomes a defensive powerhouse, but if you can't score when you're going head to head over the season with Liverpool and City sides, then you're in trouble. After the first season where Arsenal bottled the league under Arteta's expansive attacking style of play, it's like Arteta has slowly decided to just bunker the team down and become a more defensive side, pretty much just ignoring the attack. And since that first season, Arsenal have not brought in any formidable attackers to get the team goals. Instead, there's just been an influx of defensive signings at Arsenal which hasn't helped the situation. And this is an aspect of management where you can really critique Arteta. Of course, it's not entirely on him. There are people above him as there are in any football team in the world, but you have to question the fact that he's not coming out and demanding the club sign a striker or sign someone who's gonna get them more goals. His team is crying out for goals and yet he's done nothing but bringing those defensive signings, completely neglecting the attack. This season we're really seeing how this affects the side as there's been multiple games this season where Arsenal really look lost going forward. You have to remember as well, Arteta at this very moment is the 2nd most paid manager in the world, only under Pep Guardiola. He has to either do more with the team that he has or demand that the club sign him a striker and start getting someone to get you goals. But what has made matters even worse for this side is the fact that when attackers go down, or really any player across the pitch, there isn't really much cover. And boy, have players been dropping like flies for Arsenal. If we're being honest, there's somewhat of an injury crisis going on at the club. Of course, every club goes through injury problems, but Arsenal this season have definitely gotten the worst of it. To list off some of the players who have missed games this season, we have Odegaard, Kieran Tierney, Tomiyasu, who has been out the entire season. We have new signing Calafiori, Ben White, who's currently out, Zinchenko, Gabriel, Timber, Sterling, Saliba, who is currently injured in a massive loss, Gabriel Jesus, who just suffered a ligament tear in his knee, and most importantly, Arsenal's star boy Bukayo Saka, who is currently out as well. This is the majority of Arsenal's main stars who have been out at one point or another, or are currently out. And the biggest losses out of all these players have of course been from Odegaard and Saka. Defensive injuries, Arsenal have enough defensive cover to at least make things work against smaller teams and most teams in the league. The attack already struggled as is, and when Odegaard was out, the side could not break teams down or create any meaningful chances. For large parts of this season, because Odegaard was out, Arsenal had to rely on corners for goals, which has had people questioning if Arteta is capable of even coaching an offensive masterclass anymore. In Odegaard's absence, Saka did at least step up and provide goals and assists for the team, but now since Saka's been out with an injury, Arsenal are back to being in desperate need of a goal scoring threat. Jesus was that option for a couple of games, but now he's out for pretty much the rest of the season as well. Now add to this the fact that Arsenal's star center back Saliba is out with an injury too, and it continues to get more and more spooky for this Arsenal side. Arsenal at least do have the benefit of currently being in the transfer window, so they can go out and sign players for depth in the back line, depth in the attack, or just get a star striker. There's Osimhen, there's Gyökeres, there's a couple of good attacking options out there. Go sign Delap from Ipswich, get someone to get you goals. You can't keep relying on Kai Havertz to get you goals. We've seen that's not going to work because they desperately need something. Injuries have ravaged the squad and the attack has suffered so much, and it doesn't help that they set up tactically to be more pragmatic. You need players who are killers going forward if you're playing this way, and with Arsenal it's just not the case. The harsh reality is that Arsenal's squad is already very thin up top, and injuries have just made the season worse. You have had players like Waneri come into the side and show that they're capable of at least carrying some of the load, but long term, unless they develop into full out stars, you cannot win league titles like this. And it's a little bit more clear that Arteta and Arsenal have regressed when it comes to how they play on the pitch, and that the squad is being ravaged by injuries. But what usually goes under the radar is how much Arsenal fans, or specifically AFTV, play a role in the perception of Arsenal. For those who don't know what AFTV is, first of all, where have you been for the last 10 years? Second of all, it's an Arsenal fan-led channel that hosts watch-alongs as well as post-match reactions, amongst other type of content on the channel, but the post-match reactions is what it's most known for.
Ranting for views. I don't care. Come in, no, let me finish. Now let me finish. Man, I'm ranting for
AFTV, as I suppose it should be doing as a fan channel, has greatly been propagating Arsenal very highly since the 22-23 season. It's been all sunshine and daisies over at AFTV, which many find either annoying or they don't really care too much. But this does play a role in how the club is perceived. For the last handful of years, Arsenal fans have been making the club out to be some indestructible force that has only just gotten unlucky here and there, which led everyone to believe that this season, when Man City started to slip up earlier in the season, that this was Arsenal's chance to finally capture the league title. But instead, Arsenal have been the team slipping up, and the negativity has returned to AFTV full send.
No, defend him.
Okay, I'll
defend him.
Which has created a little bit of a conflicting perception. There are fans who are leaning towards moving on from Arteta, and there's fans who are still defending him, saying that there's still a possibility that Arsenal win the title and all is well still at the club. Which drives home the point that Arsenal are really in a weird place. From a rival fan or a neutral perspective, when you see infighting from the fans within the club, you begin to realize that the club is going through more problems than they like to say they are. But I will say we have returned back to the glory days of AFTV. Seeing the rants after a disappointing match always brings a smile to my face. But for Arsenal, I know they find themselves high in the Premier League and the Champions League table, but it's become clear the fans are starting to slowly turn against Arteta.
A player gonna come here and do good under Mikel Arteta. He's not gonna win us nothing. Absolutely.
And as the club continues to go trophyless, then the frustrations are only going to continue to grow. Every game that Arsenal continues to lose or draw, AFTV content continues to fester in negative clutter on the club, which then affects how we perceive Arsenal. Don Robbie has created a monster which directly influences public opinion on the club. As a neutral or rival fan, if you're seeing so many positive things coming out of a channel like AFTV, which like it or not has a lot of influence in the footballing space, then you're led to assume they're gonna mount a serious title charge. But so far, that hasn't been the case. But there's been a lot of factors at play. I mean, most importantly, injuries you cannot ignore. Any manager, no matter if they're a great or bad manager, injuries affect anyone.
Move my ankle. You can move your ankle. You ain't even try.
Shit.
If you don't have the players who are capable of playing in your system, then it's all just gonna fall apart. But with that being said, Arteta, for being the second most paid manager in the world, there's a little bit less room for using that as an excuse if we're being honest. I know Pep Guardiola is going through the same thing, and he's really the only manager that makes more than him at the moment. But Pep Guardiola also has a 4P, a treble, countless titles. He has the resume to back up his pay. Arteta hasn't done anything to deserve being the second most paid manager in the world. I know money talks in football, and any club really is capable of giving a top manager a really high salary, but Arteta needs to do more with his squad. Or, like I said, demand that the club go out and sign a striker. So far this transfer window, the guy has agreed to signing another center defensive mid for the summer. Dude, he has to go out and try and find an attacker. There's no reason why he should be content with how the squad is. If anything, go into the academy and find a striker. Find someone who you can fill the gaps with, because I know injuries are happening. I know AFTV is a mess and the way that we all perceive Arsenal is kind of up and down at the moment. But realistically, the club should not be playing with worse attacking output after every single year if you're chasing a title. Things can still turn around for the club. Like I said, it's not impossible for them to win the league this year. They're only so many points behind Liverpool and you never know what's going to happen. But at this very moment, it's really not looking good for Arsenal, mostly because of that damn attack. Arteta really needs to get it together, or question marks are just going to keep arising. You know what? As long as Arsenal keep on bottling, Arteta can stay for as long as he wants.